This episode is a companion to my LinkedIn article, Leadership is Infrastructure. You notice it only when it fails. You can find the link to the article in the episode description. A few weeks ago, I attended a workshop about Belbin's team roles. The basic idea is simple and useful. Strong teams need different kinds of people. Someone generates ideas, someone turns them into a plan, someone challenges assumptions, someone keeps relationships working, someone brings specialist knowledge, and someone makes sure the project is actually finished rather than becoming another elegant presentation stored forever in the corporate museum of good intentions. So far, no disagreement. Then the workshop moved to the idea of a team without a leader. And this is where I became slightly uncomfortable. Let's be honest. I understand why the idea sounds attractive. Nobody wants another manager whose main contribution is asking any updates in Slack, Teams, email, and then again during a meeting arranged specifically to discuss those updates. That is not leadership. That is organizational anxiety with calendar access. But rejecting bad management does not mean rejecting leadership. A team may not need a traditional boss. It may not need someone controlling every task, attending every conversation, and approving every small decision. In fact, that kind of management usually makes a capable team slower and less capable. But every serious team still needs leadership as a function. And there's a difference. A boss tries to remain at the center of everything. A leader creates the conditions in which other people can work. A boss sees the team as a machine for producing deliverables. A leader understands that the team is a complicated system. It contains people, skills, responsibilities, conflicts, expectations, deadlines, external pressure, unclear requirements, technical limitations, and, of course, the stakeholder who arrives with a very small request that somehow requires 3 months of engineering work. This topic matters even more now because modern organizations are pushing hard toward autonomy. Product teams are expected to self-organize. Agile teams should own their decisions. AI tools allow individuals to move faster and work more independently. Leadership structures are becoming flatter. Companies want fewer layers, fewer approvals, and more empowered professionals. All of that can be healthy. But autonomy does not remove the need for direction. Speed does not remove the need for judgment. And giving everyone access to powerful AI tools does not automatically create alignment. In fact, it may create the opposite. People can now produce more ideas, more documents, more prototypes, more analysis, and more confident recommendations than ever before. The volume of work increases, but someone still has to decide what matters, what fits the mission, what should stop, and which risks the organization is prepared to accept. Belbin's model is useful because it shows why teams need different types of contribution. A team made only of creative thinkers may produce hundreds of interesting ideas and almost nothing that customers can use. A team made only of implementers may execute efficiently in completely the wrong direction. A team full of careful evaluators may analyze every possible risk until the market has moved on. A team focused mainly on relationships may create a very pleasant environment where nobody wants to ask why the launch is 6 months late. Balance helps, but balance does not create accountability. This is where things get tricky. The idea of a leaderless team often works beautifully in a workshop. The coffee is hot. The exercise is theoretical. Nobody is waiting for a production incident to be resolved. Nobody has just learned that 2 senior stakeholders expect completely different outcomes from the same project. In theory, the team self-organizes. Decisions appear naturally. The strongest argument wins. Everyone shares responsibility. Then reality arrives. A deadline slips. A technical risk appears late. 2 departments start pulling the product in opposite directions. A senior executive demands a shortcut. The team cannot agree on whether to delay the release or reduce the scope. A professional disagreement turns into a polite civil war conducted through comments in Jira. And suddenly, shared ownership begins to look remarkably similar to nobody being responsible. This is the moment when the team needs more than a balanced set of roles. It needs someone who can say, here is the decision, here is why we are making it, here is what happens next, and I will own the consequences. That person does not need to dominate the room. They do not need to know more than every specialist. They certainly do not need to pretend that they have all the answers. Leaders who believe they have all the answers usually become one of the team's main risks. But someone needs to own the frame. Someone needs to protect the team from unnecessary noise. Someone needs to represent the team to the rest of the organization. Someone needs to resolve conflicts when good intentions and healthy discussion are no longer enough. Someone needs to connect the team's internal logic with external reality. Someone also needs to stop autonomy from becoming isolation, because autonomous teams can become very good at solving the problem they find interesting, rather than the problem the organization actually has. This, to me, is leadership, not command and control, not corporate theater, not scheduling another alignment meeting because the previous alignment meeting did not produce alignment. Leadership is the function that allows the other functions to work. A good leader does not replace the different team roles. They make those roles useful. They allow creative people to explore ideas, but stop the team from disappearing into permanent brainstorming. They help practical people move toward delivery, but stop execution from becoming blind obedience to an outdated plan. They allow analytical people to challenge assumptions, but stop skepticism from becoming paralysis. They protect relationships, but do not allow harmony to become more important than honesty. They value specialists, but do not allow expertise to become a private kingdom that nobody else can question. The leader is not necessarily the smartest person in the room. The leader's job is to make the intelligence in the room usable. Here's another way to look at it. Imagine a product team preparing a major release. Engineering believes the product is technically ready. Design sees serious usability problems. Sales has already promised the date to an important customer. Security discovers a risk that is unlikely to happen, but could cause major damage if it does. The product manager wants more data. The executive sponsor wants a decision before lunch. There is no perfect answer. A leaderless model may tell everyone to discuss the issue until they reach consensus. But consensus is not always possible, and even when it is possible, it may arrive too late. Leadership means listening to the specialists, understanding the trade-offs, making the decision, and carrying the responsibility. Perhaps the release moves forward with reduced scope. Perhaps it is delayed. Perhaps the risk is accepted with specific protections. The exact answer depends on the situation, but the decision cannot remain suspended forever simply because every perspective is valid. The uncomfortable part is that many so-called leaderless teams already have leaders. They simply avoid using the word. Someone coordinates the work. Someone sets the tone. Someone breaks deadlocks. Someone represents the group. Someone becomes the person others look at when the situation becomes difficult. The formal title may disappear, but the function remains. And when that function truly disappears, the result is rarely modern, empowering, or progressive. It is usually just messy. Now, there is a reasonable counter-argument. Leadership itself can become a bottleneck. Teams can become dependent on one person for every decision. The leader may slowly turn into a central approval system. People stop taking initiative because they know the leader will eventually decide anyway. The organization becomes slower while the leader becomes exhausted and strangely proud of being indispensable. That is a real risk, but it is not an argument against leadership. It is an argument against badly designed leadership. Strong teams should not need a leader for every small choice. They should make most operational decisions themselves. They should challenge each other. They should act without waiting for permission. They should use their expertise directly. Capable professionals do not need a supervisor to approve every breath. What they do need is clarity. They need to know who protects the mission when priorities collide, who owns escalation, who represents the team outside the room, who can make the unpopular decision when every available option is imperfect, and who carries responsibility when the beautifully balanced team roles are no longer enough. This is also what I would watch as organizations adopt more AI. AI will make individual contributors more independent. It will reduce the cost of producing analysis, plans, designs, code, research, and recommendations. But it may also increase disagreement because every person can arrive with a polished argument supported by a convincing document and several charts generated in 10 minutes. The scarce resource will not be output, it will be judgment. Teams will need leaders who can distinguish speed from progress, confidence from evidence, and a well-written AI-generated recommendation from a good decision. They will need leaders who can create direction without controlling every action. That form of leadership may become more important, not less. So perhaps the real question is not whether a team needs a leader. The better question is what kind of leadership the team needs. If the answer is someone who controls every step, either the team is not mature enough or the leader is not. But if the answer is nobody, because everyone is experienced and responsible, that may work while the environment is calm. Under pressure, the situation changes. Leadership stops being a title, it becomes infrastructure. And like most infrastructure, people rarely appreciate it while it is working. They notice it only when it fails. I explore this argument in more detail in the LinkedIn article. The link is available in the episode description. Read the full version and let me know what you think. Can a serious team really remain leaderless? Or does leadership always appear formally or informally as soon as the work becomes difficult?